my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. Today's episode is in partnership with Needed. There's overwhelming evidence that higher standards of nutrition support fertility, birth outcomes, and lifelong health. Unfortunately, the prenatal vitamin industry is failing us, leaving 95% of us depleted during one of the most nutritionally demanding times in our life. Most prenatal vitamins only provide bare minimum nutrition, while Needed goes beyond bare minimums with products that can meet the needs of our minds, bodies, and babies. I feel confident recommending Needed because their products are rigorously third-party tested and endorsed by over 10,000 women's health experts. Needed's prenatal multivitamin comes in two forms, capsules or a delicious vanilla powder. In addition to the prenatal multivitamin, Needed has created bundle options to meet your needs, not only during different stages of pregnancy, but also while trying to conceive and postpartum. As a mom of 3, I especially love their collagen, pre- and probiotics, and cognitive support supplements. Head over to thisisneeded.com to find your perfect bundle. I've talked to so many Birth Hour listeners who have discovered Needed through the podcast, and I love hearing the feedback that they are feeling better during pregnancy since starting with Needed. Use code BIRTHHOUR for 20% off your first order and up to 40% off monthly plans at thisisneeded.com. Since this discount applies to your first order only, I always recommend going with one of the plans for the best value. At the end of this episode, I talked to Ryan, co-founder of Needed, about Needed's recent clinical study results and what makes their products really stand out, so stay tuned for that conversation at the end of this episode. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Before we get to today's birth story, I want to talk a little bit about our online childbirth course. It's called Know Your Options, and this is the course you've been looking for if you just have that gut feeling that you know you should be taking a childbirth course, but maybe the one that's being offered to you by your care provider is not exactly what you're looking for. It might be more catered towards the type of birth they want you to have versus making you informed of all your different options and how to address different things that happen in birth, because as this podcast has shown us, birth is very unpredictable. So we would love to have you check out our 12-module course. You can go to thebirthhour.com/course to see detailed outlines of what is included in the course. You will also get a bonus course called Beyond the First Latch that is an additional 6 modules all about pumping, feeding your baby, going back to paid work if that's part of your plan. And we have a special coupon code for you. It's 100OFF for $100 off enrollment. Again, that's thebirthhour.com/course. Another great way to be part of the Birth Hour community is by supporting us over on Patreon. So by pledging your support each month at the $5 a month level, you can get access to all of our archived episodes, so over 800 additional episodes not in the main podcast feed, as well as our private Facebook group that has such a great backlog of information. Just using that search bar, you can get almost any question answered, and you're going to find really supportive people there that are going to become your friends. And in addition to that, we do monthly Zoom calls. Just go over to patreon.com/birth hour and become a Patreon member and come see what it's all about. It's just $5 a month. You can get an even bigger discount. If you want to do an annual membership, you'll see that option there. And there's also an option to get it as a gift. So if you have a friend or a mother-in-law or somebody asking you what they can get you to help you prepare for baby, maybe you want a Birth Hour Patreon membership so that you can listen to more and more birth stories and find great community. So again, head over to patreon.com/birth hour to get started with that. Today's birth story guest is Danae, and she has 2 birth stories to share with us, both in Italy, but they were really different. And she also talks about her breastfeeding experience and how much she struggled with her first, and then how it was a lot better with her second. And she really set herself up for success with a lot of preparation for that there. All right, let's hear from Danae. Hi, Danae. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, we have 2 stories to get to today, but before we do that, can you tell listeners a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, I'm Danae. I'm a self-love influencer and journalist, currently living in Italy with my Italian husband, and we now have 2 babies.
All right, and we're going to hear both birth stories today. So why don't you just start with your first pregnancy, journey to getting pregnant, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, here we go. I started trying to get pregnant, I think I was around 37. So my husband and I got married pretty late, but things happened very quickly. We both knew we wanted a family as soon as we got married. And we actually started trying to get pregnant a month before our wedding. I thought it would take a lot longer than it turned out to take. It turns out I got pregnant on that very first try. And I was pregnant. I didn't know this at the time. I was pregnant at my wedding, which explains the extreme exhaustion I felt afterwards.
Oh.
And I actually found out on our honeymoon. We were in Como, Lake Como in Italy, and it's so beautiful. And I had missed my period, and I was trying to get a pharmacy to give me a pregnancy test in Italian. I didn't know the words for it. I'm miming a belly. So they gave me the test. I took it. I was pregnant, and we were both just overjoyed because for both of us, one of the large reasons for finding a partner is we wanted a family. I was 37? No, 36? Gosh, I don't even know. My husband's older. So we had waited a long time, but we were both ready to find that person and kind of make our home. So it was a beautiful honeymoon. And to fast forward a few weeks, I ended up losing that pregnancy. Didn't even know it was possible. Of course I knew there were miscarriages, but it never crossed my mind that it would happen to me. And I went in for a scan at 8.5 weeks. And very quickly, the doctor's face got very serious, and he was just, I'd walked in joking and full of excitement, and his tone switched very quickly, and he sat me down and broke the news. And it was devastating, as anyone who's ever experienced a miscarriage can confirm. It was crushing. I just burst out into tears and couldn't listen to anything else he was saying. And I was convinced he was wrong. And I kept saying let's come back Monday. Let's come back for another scan, which we did. And the baby had passed. It stopped growing at 7.5 weeks. So in Italy, which is where I was then, where I still am based, you have two options for a miscarriage. You can do a D&C where I think they put you under and they remove the miscarriage, or you can take pills. And the pills you also do at the hospital. So nothing's done at home. So I went in for the first round of pills on a Monday, felt not much of anything, went home, went back on Wednesday for the second round. And then they have you stay. And that's where I had my miscarriage, was in this hospital room, by myself. It was during COVID time, so my husband wasn't allowed in. And while the nurses were so lovely, they're also nurses at an Italian public hospital, so they're very busy. No one was really with me. And I remember at one point the pain getting so bad that I had asked the nurse for something for the pain, something a little stronger than sort of aspirin is what they had given me. I was like, is there anything else? Because this hurts. This hurts a lot. And they came back with a pack of sugar.
Okay.
And I just remember being like, that's not quite what I was going for there. This is not helping. So that really shaped my fertility journey and also what I wanted from pregnancy going forward. And this will come up when I talk about my second pregnancy, my first full-term pregnancy.
Okay.
So that whole experience of just how it felt very alone. It felt very isolating. I remember being in this Italian hospital, not yet able to communicate, just crying to myself. And it was pretty difficult.
Yeah. And so you mentioned it was during COVID. Did you get married right before COVID hit?
No, it was at the tail end of COVID is when the miscarriage happened.
Okay.
I think we were still wearing masks, and I remember I had to wear a mask to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So it's probably 2022. It would have been 2022.
Okay. I know Italy was especially hit hard by COVID in the early days, so probably even more strict.
They were super strict because it was so drastic here. Mm-hmm. But after that, we started looking more into fertility and hormones. And I learned that my egg reserve was low. I didn't have the healthiest eggs. I was older when I even started trying to get pregnant. And so at that stage, we were recommended to do IUI, which is, I would say it's like a precursor to IVF. So it's a much gentler way of trying to help you get pregnant. And we were told I had to get certain numbers under control. My thyroid levels were high. So they had me on thyroid medicine. And after several months, we were told we could start doing the IUI. So during this time, we were dropping my thyroid levels and just kind of casually trying. Like I was tracking my period. I really wanted to get pregnant again. So we were tracking my numbers. Like I was very aware of my ovulation, and we were trying to get pregnant, but also trying to get my numbers in control. So like my husband is quite by the books. He used to be an engineer. Like he's very, he's very like, we follow the rules. And I was like, I want a baby now, please. I need this baby. I love this baby. I want this baby. And what happened is by the time we were ready to start the IUI, so this was several months down the road, and we had been trying, as we got the medicine to do the shots and such, again, I was lucky. It turned out I was pregnant naturally. So like it just happened. I think because I knew we were going to be doing these shots, because I knew the pressure was off, and probably because we were just trying and it was just luck of the draw, but got pregnant. My first pregnancy was pretty standard. I had really bad nausea in first trimester, like really bad. I had to take medicine, and it was awful because with my job, like I feel like you want to show up very sparkly and happy and upbeat. And I remember that first trimester just feeling just like death. Like I would just, one time I was on a shoot in Ibiza for work. I was there like doing something for work, and I was like in the back of this taxi and it was bouncing around, and I'm like just trying not to be sick everywhere. So that was first trimester, but second, I felt great. Third trimester had horrible, horrible heartburn. But overall, like I was just so happy because especially I think after the miscarriage and the pain I felt around that, having this baby, like every single day of having this baby in my tummy was just the biggest blessing. Even if I felt horrible or sick or tired or had heartburn and couldn't eat 90% of my favorite foods, I was just so thankful. I mentioned the miscarriage because it definitely shaped what I wanted when I gave birth. So for the miscarriage, there was a huge language barrier. I felt very alone. My husband wasn't there. It was like I felt very safe because I was in a hospital, which I'm so thankful for, but it was still very isolating and difficult. And so in Italy, you have the option of going to the public hospitals. You often will share a birth room with 2 to 3 other birthing moms.
Wow.
So there will be like multiple women in the room at once.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can't choose your provider in that situation. You don't know who your doctor is. You don't know who the nurses are. It's just whoever's on call at that time. So it'll be someone who has read your file but doesn't know you necessarily. Or you can choose to go private. And with private, you're followed by one doctor. The doctor is the one there at the birth for the final stages. You sometimes get a private room, but it might be full with another person. There might be one other person in the room, but sometimes you get it to yourself. It's kind of luck of the draw. And it's a bit more intimate. We decided to go private because I really needed the reassurance that my doctor would know me, would be able to communicate with me. My Italian was better at this stage, but it wasn't, there's a whole lot of body and medical terms. And
you didn't want to be offered sugar when you needed something else.
I don't want to be trying to push and having to think of the word. It's like, is it spingere or tirare? I don't know. Right.
Especially when you're in the zone of
what are they
giving
saying?
birth. Yeah.
Exactly. Arriva, bambino, arriva. And I wanted my husband to be in the room. And the husband thing was also very important for me because he's my anchor, my lighthouse. He calms me down. He makes me feel very safe. And I just I needed that. So this is also worth mentioning. In Italy, I know in the US, it's very common now where you have a whole crew in the room with you, right? You have your doula and your birth photographer and your partner and probably a parent. In Italy, you get one person. You get one person. So I was like, I need my husband. I need him in the room. So that was our setup. That was my plan. Is I was going to go private. Nico was going to come very quickly to be with me. I was going to have a beautiful birth and it was going to be great. That was, I sorted it all out.
Okay.
And then the baby it was a little girl. We know it was a little girl. She just hung out in my tummy. She stayed in my belly. So she just pushed her way on up to 40 weeks. And at this point I had a lot of extra amniotic fluid. So they were getting a bit concerned. They had me cut out all sugars. It was like Italian Christmas time and I wasn't allowed to eat pasta or any carbs. And, I'm eating my like sad little turkey by myself. and I had extra amniotic fluid. So the doctors were monitoring that pretty closely. I had to go in for a lot of like extra tests, but the baby she was just staying. So they started talking about an induction. And 41 weeks, they were like, all right, we're going to schedule you an induction because your baby is just floating around in there, happy as can be. She was in like a good position. Her little head was down, but she didn't want to come out. And at 41 weeks and 5 days, we went to the hospital. It was probably 8 p.m. We had to go in through like the emergency entrance for this scheduled induction. And as we were walking in down the hall, having done our paperwork, my waters just burst everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
It was like in a film. It wasn't that little trickle. It was this proper big liquid everywhere. And I just froze. I stared at the nurse and I'm like, what do I do here? And she just looked at me like I should know the answer to that. Like neither of us knew what to do in this situation. There was just liquid everywhere. Fortunately, because I was going for the induction, we had extra clothes and everything. But what happened is they wanted me to stay in the hospital because my waters had burst, but my husband wasn't allowed to stay. It goes back to like the Italian rules and, the hospital rules. So I ended up in a room by myself again, kind of laboring. And I would call a miscarriage. It feels like labors, the early stages of labor. So I was laboring by myself from about 9 p.m. until when the doctors and staff arrived again at around 9 a.m. the next morning. And fortunately, I do like being by myself. So that part wasn't awful, but I really wanted my husband there and he wasn't there. And I just remember I paced up and down this room I was just continuously leaking so much, this extra amniotic fluid that I had, wearing those diapers. My room had a shower. So I spent a lot of my time in the shower trying to get comfortable, but contractions just suck. They hurt. And by 9 a.m., a doctor arrived and came and checked me and my doctor. And he was like, okay, you're now 4 centimeters. We will move you into the birthing room and your husband can come then. He can join you then. And I'm like, okay, finally. I go to the birthing room. It's very traditional setup where you're laying on your back, you're hooked up to IVs and monitors and wires and everything. And I start asking, at this point, things start getting pretty painful. And I'm like, well, where is my husband? Like, when is he going to come? And the team were like, okay, well, if you want an epidural, we need to do the epidural first, then your husband can come. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know if I wanted one or not, but if that's the path, then okay, fine. I will take, I want an epidural. This is hurting. This is pretty spicy. Mm-hmm. And I want my husband here. I'm by myself trying to communicate in Italian. I have no one. Give me my person. So the epidural, the anesthesiologist, unfortunately was delayed. There were a couple of other emergencies happening in the hospital, and I completely respect that those emergencies took priority. But what it meant for me is that I was laying in this bed from 9 until 11, 12, contracting, labor getting worse. They had given me a little bit of, we call it, in the US, we call it Pitocin. Here, it's a different word. It goes by a different name. But they had given me some of that to make the contractions more regular, because mine they were long when they happened, but irregular. So they'd given me some of that. So things were just getting really painful, and my partner wasn't there. Finally, I was able to do the epidural, which it actually really wasn't, for me, it wasn't that bad. But I think I was in so much pain at that point that I was like, just anything will feel better than this. And I think it's called a walking epidural, where it's like you could still feel things, but it reduced the pain quite considerably. And so I did the epidural, and I'm like, okay, well, where is my husband? Where is my husband? And they're like, oh, he'll come. The doctor has to check this. We need to do that. And it got to the point I had to start getting really firm, and I'm not a very firm person, but I was like, give me my husband, give me my partner. Like, I want him in this room with me because the baby is going to be coming soon. Nico was allowed in around 12:30, 1. I started pushing at 2 and had my baby by about 2:30.
Oh my gosh.
He was there for probably just the last 2-ish hours of the birth.
Oh man.
And I do feel like that's probably pretty common in parts of Italy where, again, you have very full hospitals and not a lot of staff. And so they're just trying to make it work the best they can. And they reduced, for the pushing part, they reduced my epidural down to about 30%. So it was still there. It was still lessening the pain quite considerably, but I could feel things a lot more. And they really wanted to do that so that I could work with my contractions to help reduce tearing. And I don't know if that was what worked, or if I indeed have, as the nurse from my second birth told me, I have a very stretchy vagina. The result, yeah, I know. I was like, thank you. That's the strangest compliment I think I've ever received, but I'll take it. All right. But the result is I only had like a tiny, tiny bit of internal tearing, just a tiny bit. Like the birth itself was very easy in a way, like easy, as easy as births can be.
Right.
Baby popped out in a couple of pushes. She was healthy. I had one small stitch inside, and all of that, like everything wrapped around that, I felt good. I felt really energized. I obviously was so overjoyed. All of that was beautiful. Where things got messy for me with my first birth is around breastfeeding. And this is, I would say it was traumatic. That's not a word I use lightly, but it was traumatic in the sense that I had no idea how to breastfeed with Aurora, and I didn't realize how ignorant I was. I didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought, you stick a baby on the boob and they eat and everything works magically and it's a beautiful, blissful experience. And the only education I got from the hospital was a nurse had sort of shoved my nipple into Audi's little mouth, and that was it. And so I thought, okay, this is how you breastfeed. That's how you get baby to eat, is you grab the back of their head and you grab your nipple and you kind of push the two things together, and then they eat. And so that's what I tried to do in this hospital, where my husband was only allowed during visiting hours from like 2 to 4 every day after I gave birth. So I had a lot of time to, try to shove my boob into baby's mouth, and just me and her. And very quickly, my nipples started to crack and bleed and became very sore. And it got so bad that I started Googling and YouTubing it and searching. And I started realizing, oh, wait a second, there's a whole science to how you hold the baby, how you angle the baby. Like, you shouldn't force their head onto your boob. They should come to it, all these like nuances about breastfeeding that I just didn't even know about.
Yeah.
But by that point, unfortunately, my boob was already all cracked and my nipples already all cracked and damaged. And so again, I thought, okay, well, I should just let it rest. I should just stop feeding on the bad side and I'll just feed on the other side.
Yeah.
And maybe if I had, even a midwife who had spoken English, or anyone that I knew to talk to about these things, someone would have very quickly said, like, don't do that, girlfriend. You're going to make things a big mess. But there was a language barrier. I didn't know what I didn't know. It got bad because by the time I got home, I hadn't been feeding on my right side for over a day and a half. And my milk had started to come in. And I now know, this second time mom, like I am an oversupplier. I have so much milk. And so very, very, very quickly, I developed mastitis on my right side. And I said to a midwife at that point, I was speaking to someone in Italian, my bad Italian, but I was like, I'm pretty sure this is mastitis. Like, I've read about it in my mom groups. Like, I'm feeling really feverish. My boob is hurting. Like, isn't this mastitis? And like, shouldn't I do treatment for it? Shouldn't I do something? And they're like, oh, no. It's too early for mastitis. It's not mastitis.
Oh, no.
It was mastitis.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not feeding on one side, that's going to happen. Oh.
Yeah. But now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But I just didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, if no one's teaching you, no one's speaking English.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So we realized it was mastitis, but I was given the outdated technique to handle mastitis. And that was warm compresses, strong massage, trying to pump or express more to get this clog out, all these things. And at the same time, I had started talking about this to my community. I had started saying, like, look what's happening to my boob. Isn't it crazy? And I was getting these women saying, oh, Danae, do you know they've just recently updated the breastfeeding recommendations for how you handle mastitis in the US. They've flipped it on its head.
Right.
It used to be heat, now it's ice. It used to be massage, now it's not. It used to, they're saying do the opposite. Don't do this, do the opposite. I started researching it, reading about the change in policy, and I start bringing this information to my midwife and sort of medical team here, being like, in the US,
yeah.
they've changed how they're doing it. Should I try that? Because it's just getting worse and worse. And the team here was like, no, you need to do heat. You need to do this. We love you. We want to. It was such awful advice from such a place of love. And I started to feel a bit crazy. Like, I couldn't trust my body. I didn't know what was right, what was wrong. I didn't know what I should be doing. I just knew I was really sick, and I kept getting fevers. I kept getting more and more ill. The mastitis kept coming back. It was never going away. And whenever I tried to latch my baby, especially on that side, it felt like someone was stabbing me in the boob with needles. Oh. And so it was such a complex time mentally. Mm-hmm. And this was all within the first month. And it got so bad. And I didn't talk about how bad it got on social media. I don't know why. Maybe because I was so sick. And sometimes it's just complicated, especially breastfeeding. I think women can feel very delicate around breastfeeding. But it got to the point where a nurse was coming twice a day to give me like antibiotic shots in the butt. Wow. And I was just laying in this bed with this awfully sick boob, not sure what to do, and a baby that I wanted to feed. And I felt such a strong desire to breastfeed. It was something that I never thought would be important to me, but it became very important to me. And I wasn't able to. It got to the point where my baby was feeding, Audi was feeding absolutely fine, just on one side, the healthy side. And she was growing perfectly fine. She was a huge baby and in the 80th percentile, growing right on track, this and that. But the other boob just kept getting sick. And the team here were like, okay, we're going to give you these 2 pills and you need to take them, and they're going to stop your milk production and you're going to do formula. Oh, wow. And that is what you're going to do.
Very outdated here for sure.
Is it? They don't do, see, I don't know this.
I mean, as far as I know, I feel like that's something that was offered when our mothers were having babies, but I could be wrong. I have not heard it on the podcast since.
See, I don't know because
even when you choose not to breastfeed or you lose a baby, they don't offer that. You have to just go through the process of kind of shutting down the milk production by not feeding and compresses and cabbage leaves and all these things. But I have not heard of the medication being offered even in those situations.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I've never mentioned it on my socials. And I sometimes with, a community my size, when I talk about things, it helps me feel less alone because there will surely be 1 or 2 other people. But
right.
I I honestly, I don't know anyone else who's gone through in this way, this experience, but they gave me the pills and I took one night and I didn't want to. And I kept pushing back. And I just remember, I would say I was probably quite depressed at this stage because I just so desperately wanted to breastfeed, but also couldn't get anyone to tell me if it would be okay if I just fed her on one side, because it was working. She was growing perfectly. Everything was fine. I was like, can't I just do this? Why do I have to stop? I don't want to stop. But people around me who loved me very much kept saying, this is what you need to do. You need to do this. So I took the pill and right away regretted it. Right away, I like called up my doctor, my poor doctor, who he's busy saving the lives of, women having C-sections or going through difficult pregnancy births. And I'm calling him and I felt so guilty, honestly. I'm very ashamed to be bothering him. But I wanted to know, could I take it back? Could I stop? I don't want to do this. Like, this was a mistake. I want to feed my baby the way that I want to feed her. And he's like, you can't reverse it. Like, you've taken one of the pills, you have to take the other one. And then I was advised to wear double sports bras and like immediately stop feeding, stop pumping, stop doing anything to stimulate the boob. And when I tell you, the pain that happened over the next 8 hours was worse than the pain of giving birth for me. Actually, the pain of both of my births. And my second one I did without any pain medicine. So it was worse. It was worse. Because there's a reason we don't let women stop breastfeeding in that way, where they just go cold turkey. And obviously it's infection risk and this and that, but it's also excessively painful. It's extremely painful. My left boob had been feeding my baby just fine for about a month and producing double the milk, so producing enough to make up for both boobs. Overnight, I was told to stop doing anything with it and just let the milk be there. And I remember just laying on the bed in the nursery, like twisting in pain and kind of silently screaming into the air because it felt like someone was stabbing my breast with knives. My husband was away with work. His mother had come down and she's so lovely, but I didn't know her well enough at that point to communicate what I was feeling. I didn't know. Yeah. She obviously saw me, so she saw the pain. But what do you say? How do you fix it when everyone around you is saying this is just normal? And I would message my midwife asking, should it hurt this bad? Is it supposed to be this painful? Because it's really painful. And they would go, just take a tacopurina, which is the equivalent in America. It would be like a children's Tylenol. Like it's okay. It's the really delicate low dosage medicine that they give to pregnant women and children.
Yeah.
And in the end, I started like overlapping, tacopurina and ibuprofen and trying to make my own painkiller because I was so desperate. And it was just a mess. It was awful. Mm-hmm. And I would say that it was traumatizing in many ways. Mm-hmm. It really impacted the next couple of months of my early postpartum, unfortunately, because it felt like something had been ripped away from me that I felt called to do. And I had opened up a bit about some of this on social media. And for the first time in my, not first time in my social media career, but for the first time in a very long time, I was swept up in a lot of online bullying. And it was online bullying directed at my skills as a mother, my skills as a woman, saying that my daughter clearly hated me because, it'll make me cry, because they could see in my photos how uncomfortable she was and how miserable she was, and like, how awful to have me as a mother. And
oh my gosh,
all this, it was all this awful stuff at the same time as me dealing with everything that was happening, the illnesses and the breastfeeding and just the hormone shifts of early postpartum.
Right.
And being in a new country, I was fairly new to Italy. I hadn't even really been there a year yet. Would it have been a year and a half? I didn't have many friends here yet. I didn't really speak the language yet. So it was a very difficult time. Postpartum with Aurora was very difficult. she was an exceptionally easy baby, like the easiest, happiest little girl. So I'm very thankful for that, because
Yeah.
I don't think I could have taken much more.
She knew what you needed.
Yeah, exactly. She was great. She was just smiley and happy, but postpartum was tough. And
Yeah.
I wish we as women talked about it more, and about how difficult and lonely it can be, because I think so often we feel embarrassed and ashamed and conflicting emotions, where we're happy we have these babies, we're so grateful, we're so thankful. You know, my God, I fought for this baby, and still,
Yeah.
it was one of the hardest times of my life. It was very difficult. So,
Yeah, that's a lot. So was there anything that kind of brought you out of that, or just time?
just time, honestly, just time. Like finding a way to heal around the breastfeeding thing, finding a way to move forward, and just to heal mentally, physically. And I'm, just time, really. And with time, I did feel like myself again. It got better. Aurora is the cutest, happiest baby. So we really just found our stride. And by the time she was 6 months old, I knew I wanted another baby.
Okay.
Like, I wasn't sure before I gave birth. I wasn't sure if I wanted a big family, a little family. I had no idea. She was my first real one that popped out. So I was kind of like, let's just wait and see. And then very quickly, I was like, this is the biggest love I've ever felt in my life. This has changed my world. This is magical. It is so hard, but it's magical. I want another. I want one more.
Yeah.
So my husband and I went back and forth, though. Like in Italy, it's very normal not to have children now. Italy has the lowest birth rate in all of Europe. It's very, if you do have a child, you usually have one and then you stop. It's rare to have two, and to have any more than that is like unheard of. So the families here are a lot smaller than, I went to university in Nebraska. They're a lot smaller than in Nebraska, where you have like 4 or 5 the kids, and that's the norm. So my husband and I went back and forth for a while about if we want another one, what would that look like? How would that impact our lives? And eventually decided, like, I knew I wanted one, but he was a bit more like, okay, well, what are the implications of this? And what does this look like? And then we started trying. We decided, yes, let's go for it. Let's do it. And we started trying. Tried for a couple of months. I got pregnant again, super excited, so happy, and lost that one as well. So that one happened sooner. I found out that I was pregnant at like 3.5 weeks, because when you're trying and you've had fertility struggles, like you become dedicated to those tests.
Yep.
You're like, I'm not going to test.
Looking at them in all the different lighting. And
oh my gosh, like taking it apart, just stare into it. Like, what am I doing? Who is this person? But I just wanted this other baby so bad. I wanted another one, and found out very early I was pregnant. I was super, super, super happy. And then went in, contacted my doctor straight away because of everything that happened in the past. Went in for a HCG test, and the numbers came back, and they were a bit worrying. They were a bit low. So my doctor's like, okay, take another test in a couple of days. I had to travel again for work. I had to go to Austria, and like I had this big workshop all day where I was in front of people and presenting, and had to be really, really sparkly and shiny. And the night before, we basically confirmed that it was a lost pregnancy, that this one was not going to stick. It was going to go away. It was confirmed. And I just remember, like, that whole night I was, pouring through messaging boards, trying to look for someone that was like, oh, my numbers went down first, but then they went up. Or, like, oh, I thought I was losing the baby, but no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I lost the baby. And this time, because it was earlier, they call it either an early miscarriage or a chemical pregnancy. And when the baby passed, it was just like a much heavier period. And I felt a bit sicker and a bit more off. And it hurt. It hurt again. It's that the grief of losing the future you imagined. And when you want it so bad. And it caused some fights, because then I was like, okay, well, I've lost this baby. I want to start again right away. Mm-hmm. But our doctor said to wait 3 months. And my husband, again, the engineer, is like, Danae, the doctor said, we need to wait. And I was like, no, I want to start. I want baby now. Let's make baby now. We waited. We start trying again. I was able to conceive. We were thinking about doing IVF because it was taking so long to get pregnant. And like last time, as soon as we made the decision, so we had made this decision to do IVF, I got pregnant.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just luck, or probably is just luck, but maybe it's, for me, maybe it's a bit of mental. Mm-hmm. And like the first one, this pregnancy was pretty straightforward. I had all of the same symptoms, just with a toddler running around this time.
Right.
Yeah. So it made the nausea a little trickier, and the heartburn, like even just bending down was tough. And I swear by the end, I wasn't sleeping at all. All that was a little tricky. I decided this time that I wanted to go to, here it's called the Centro Margherita. It's a birth center that's attached to the public hospital. So it's a public birth center. It's attached to the public hospital. It has 5 rooms, these big, beautiful, like king-size beds, and a very holistic approach. So in the hospital, it's very traditional medicine. At the birth center, it's only midwives, and there are no pharmaceuticals. There's no medicine. It is movement. It is water, breathing. They have birth balls in all the rooms. They have ropes hanging from the ceiling, all that stuff. And I wanted that. I wanted a birth at the birth center. The only tricky thing is your birth has to be perfect. Like, they do not take, if you have any complications like gestational diabetes or like amniotic fluid, excessive amniotic fluid, they don't take you because you're a risk, and they don't have the tools for that sort of medical risk. So my whole pregnancy, I was like hoping for this birth center.
Yeah.
And I got it. But it was very on the edge, because like with Aurora, Leo, my second baby, he just wanted to stay in there. He just was happy in the tummy. So we get to like 41 weeks, and the birth center starts trying to do natural induction techniques. They do this like pressure point thing with seeds in my ears one day. They did, the pressure point thing. They did some sweeps, cervical sweeps, which those aren't fun. They're not fun. I went in on it was a Sunday for my second cervical sweep, and it's my second one. So they got all up in there and were being quite serious at this stage. And that is what started the trigger for giving birth my second time. As soon as I stood up from the table, I started having contractions, and they were pretty intense, pretty strong. But the team was like, okay, well, go home, go labor at home. And then when they're a lot closer, you come on in, you're a second time mom. So don't wait until the last minute, but come on in. We got home, and my toddler, it was, a weekend. So my toddler's like running around crazy, super excited because mom is there just being really strange. I'm like, because I had these really bad cramps at that point, bad contractions. And they were happening every minute for 2 minutes. And so
wow.
I turned to my husband. I was like, hey, I think something's happening here, because it's really kicked it off. He calls the birth center, and they say, oh yeah, you should come back then. Come right back in. Because it's a 35-minute drive from the house through these there's a pretty Tuscan road you go through. It looks like a picture frame,
nice.
Past these olive groves, very Italian, very pretty. But they're like, come back in. We come back in, and even though my whole career is like in the public eye, I do not like to be watched. I get a big performance anxiety. So the team were like, okay, well, let us just see you experiencing a few cramps, contractions. We're going to monitor them. We'll see where you are and how you're doing and stuff. And I sit down, and as soon as I'm sitting down at the birth center, the cramps slow right down to 6 minutes in between, 7 minutes in between.
What? Oh.
And I'm like, I swear they were happening. I swear I didn't just make this up. I have a little timer. I was timing them, I promise. And the team was like, okay, well, why don't you stay? We won't check you in yet, because if they check me in, I have 24 hours before I'm risked out. So say I didn't give birth within 24 hours, I have to move to the main hospital. So they're like, we won't check you in yet. You're not an official guest, but you can just stay here for a few more hours and we'll see if the contractions pick back up. So they escorted us to this lovely room. We were in this room. I started walking up and down the halls. I was like doing some yoga stretches, doing some moves. And while the contractions were picking back up, they weren't anywhere near as regular as before. And so it gets to the end of the 4 hours. Like my husband's there, I'm there. The team come in and we're trying to figure out, should I go back home? But we've already done it. My daughter was crying because mommy left. You know, she's like always with me and suddenly she's away. So we had to deal with the trauma of that. Like, do we really want me to come home and be like, hi, mommy's here again? Like, bye. Yeah. Or do we risk just staying here? Like, what if the 24 hours fly by and there's no baby? Like, what is that? And the team is like, okay, look, why don't we see how far dilated you are? And we'll give you just like one more little sweep. Let's just see if we can give it a little more of a nudge. And at this point, I realized how painful cervical sweeps can be. And I wasn't a fan of the idea, but I think it was the best solution we had. So they get me on the table. They get all up in there. I don't even know at this point. I was like 2 centimeters dilated, 3 centimeters, something not big. And they have room to like do quite a strong sweep where I thought I was going to throw up. I was like, this is not a party, but it worked. Right away, as soon as I got off the table again, the contractions were so strong that I had 5 contractions in a row of about like 40 seconds each. I ended up on the bed, this like big, beautiful bed. And I'm there. I'm like, this is a little more intense than I thought it would be to start with. They just stopped without any break, like one after another. So we got me into the shower. I labored in the shower for an hour. You know, it was like they had put like those, I don't know what they're called, those curtains that they used to change behind, like a curtain screen, like in the old films.
Yeah, like to divide a room or something.
Yes. So they had the bathroom door open because the shower wasn't in my room. It was like off to the end of the reception area, strangely. And so they had the door open, but the screen up. I think they were just worried, like if I fell down or something, you know.
Right.
So I labored in there for about an hour, just making these low humming sounds because I think I had heard on your podcast that it helped. And I would just like half like close my eyes and I kept trying to breathe through the cramps, breathe through the contractions. And I didn't want to get out of that shower. That shower was beautiful, but I was worried if I stayed in there too long, I would slow down the contractions that they had, you know, literally used a hand in getting them going again. So after an hour, we moved back into the room. I had a wonderful midwife and her assistant. They were with me the entire time, and my husband was there. And I labored on the bed on a birth ball. I had thought that I'd want to be massaged and get snuggles and like have my husband touching me the whole time. When I was having contractions, I did not want anything on me, anyone near me. I was like a wild woman. I just wanted the ball. And I was draping my upper body across the ball, swinging my booty in the air and like swinging my tummy around. And every now and then this poor assistant would come in to check the heart rate. I didn't want to go on my back. It hurt too much on my back for some reason. So this midwife would like stretch under me and physically try to hold the sensors onto my swaying tummy.
Wow.
they're superheroes, those women. They did a great job. And very quickly, actually, by midnight, so things had properly started around, I would say 8:39. By midnight, I was already 8 centimeters dilated. And at this stage, I start saying, like, I want the bath. I want to get in the bath. I want the tub. I need the tub. So they start filling up the tub, but birth tubs take forever to fill up.
Yes.
Why is this? Like, what is going on with that water? And they just take forever. It took so long. And they kept monitoring me and they kept trying to put this sensor heart rate monitor on my finger. I think because I can get quite low blood pressure and stuff. So they kept sticking it on my finger. And I feel so bad because every time I would have a contraction, I would like pull it off. I just wasn't even thinking. I would pull it off and then like grab my ball. And if anyone tried to touch me, I would be like, no. And I read somewhere that it said, you know, you're in active labor when you stop being polite.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that resonates, actually. I stopped caring about being nice, and I was just very selfish, as I think women deserve to be in that moment. And I started to say, like, I feel like I need to do a popo, devo fare un popo. And the midwife, who didn't speak any English, was like, you know, she was saying to me in Italian, she's like, push, you need to push. And I was like, no, popo. And she's like, push, like popo. I'm like, oh God, am I going to popo in this bed? Like, what is happening? And she's like, well, just listen. She was so kind. She's like, listen to your body, trust your body. If you need to push, even if it's your popo, if you need to push, just trust it. Just trust what your body is telling you. Just listen to your body. And it helped me get out of my head, because I just was like, I kept thinking, I'm still just 8 centimeters. I'm 8 centimeters. I can't push. Well, I wasn't. I was fully dilated. And at that stage, they were helping me get into the tub. I laid down, and the water was so beautiful that I fell asleep for like 5 minutes. And I would have never thought, the contractions at this point were super regular, but they just stopped. They stopped for a couple of minutes. And I just sort of drifted off in this lovely warm water. And that's when my husband he took one photo the entire time. It's the only picture we have of the birth. And that's when he took the pictures, when I'm in this tub sleeping. And then I woke up and very, very, very much had to popo push. so I pushed like once, and then twice the head popped out. 3 times the body was out, and baby came out. Here they say in camice, baby came out with the water intact, like in the bag, in the sack. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be good luck. Italians say it's a good luck thing. So yeah, Leo popped out in his sack. They passed him under to me. I was on my hands and knees at this point. They passed him under to me. I took him. I was crying and just holding him. And they were very gently, the midwives were gently helping me out of the tub, because while you can give birth in the tub, you have to birth your placenta out of it. I think they want to be able to see, you know, if you're hemorrhaging or if there's blood loss. Mm-hmm. So they like helped me down these little stairs and then back onto this big, beautiful bed. And my husband's there like wiping my head and giving me cold water, because I was really hot, because the tub was warm, which it was actually hot, which I liked. I like heat. And I was holding little Leo. I birthed the placenta. They showed it to me. Well, they asked me if I wanted to see it. I was like, yes. I want to see this organ I grew. And if people have never seen one, it's worth seeing yours. It's really, I found it really empowering, because it's big and it's like a tree, and it's really cool that we grow that, we make that, and then our body just gets rid of it. Like, that is,
it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy. It's powerful. It's so cool. And then I had the most beautiful couple of days postpartum, because at the birth center, your husband's allowed to stay the entire time versus only coming for visiting hours in the hospital. So,
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So Nico was with me the whole time. They're very holistic. Like, they did moxa treatment. It's kind of this fire smoke treatment for my nipples when they became sore. All of baby's checkups happened in the room, so that the medical teams would come to us. We didn't have to leave. It was this, like, a gorgeous little bubble. And because I had had such a difficult time breastfeeding with Aurora, I was really proactive this time in making sure I had both a local lactation consultant, IBCLC, and I worked also with a doctor based out of London, who has her own breastfeeding clinic. So I had 2 people that I was able to talk to and do calls with. And then when I came home, the local lactation consultant came to my house, all to help me really figure out breastfeeding. And when I got home, the lactation consultant, she came for 4 hours. We did different positions. Like, I learned so much that if I were to say one thing to every expectant mom, it would be, please, please, please allow yourself the luxury of finding a lactation consultant. Like, I would say it's worth more than that new fancy stroller or the funny, cot that wobbles. Mm-hmm. It is the biggest gift, because even with all that help, my first 3 weeks of breastfeeding were still it still hurt. It still hurt. My nipples still cracked. One of them still bled. Like, I have big nipples, I think. And my baby had a little mouth, and I'm certainly not used to like someone trying to get milk out of them 24/7. So it hurt. It hurt, and it was scary, and it was strange and complicated, but I was learning, and baby was learning too. And this time I wasn't alone. This time I had a team around me that helped me have the tools to breastfeed in the way I wanted to. And at 3 weeks, my baby ended up getting sick. Leo got very sick, and we had to take him to the hospital, and we ended up in Italy's version of the NICU for a week. And having that breastfeeding team, it was so important, and it was so, especially in those days, because while Leo was there, I was there with him, and they have pumps and they have different things at the NICU, but still it changed my rhythm. And I did develop, on one breast, I developed the start of mastitis, and on the other breast, I developed like an inflamed duct. And with these doctors and with the new advice, I was able to get all of that under control before it became what happened my first time.
Good.
So, icing and gentle massage. And I'd come back into the NICU. I'd go downstairs to get a coffee at this cafe, and I'd ask them for bags of ice. And I'd be up in the NICU, like shoving ice down my shirt. And what was interesting to me is still, like, even these NICU doctors would kind of come over, and they were so lovely, and we had so much time together. But they would tell me, they're like, oh, you should put a warm compress on your boob, and you should go in the pump room, and you should empty it fully, so that you don't get mastitis. And it was interesting to hear advice that I now know is outdated, but it's still what's being taught, because it takes time to make these shifts. But I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why women need lactation consultants, because my consultant here, she's Italian, and she was like, do not put anything warm on that boob. Like, do ice as often as you can. Only draw out what you need to. Like, she was like, you just trust your body and trust yourself.
Yeah.
And the result of all of that is my breastfeeding journey has been very different, and it's been beautiful and rewarding, and it makes me so happy.
Yay.
Yeah. Even though it's a little, it's pretty time consuming. They eat a lot, these little babies.
Yeah. Constant.
But those are my 2 births and some of the surroundings.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm with you on the lactation consultant, and I always recommend, like, find one before you give birth, because when you think you need one, like when you're to that point, it's too late. Not too late, but like you're in a lot of pain and you're suffering. Yeah. So if you can have someone to kind of come and just be like, hey, everything's great, even that will be encouraging, even if there's no problems. So,
well, and even the mental side of it, I feel like lactation consultants are a bit like doulas.
Yes, totally.
Right. They come and they wrap you in that warmth and say, like, you are okay. It is okay. You can trust your body. You can trust yourself. Block out the noise. Like, it's going to be okay. And then they help you. They guide you. And we don't have villages these days. I think we're so desperate for that connection. We need that as new moms. We need that. We have to have it.
Yes. Yeah. Even with my 3rd baby, my lactation consultant was like, do you want me to come over? And I was like, I mean, yeah, just to talk, really. But
yeah, exactly.
It's like the kind of person you want in the room in that period. So
yeah, they're just so warm and nurturing. Like, yeah. Come, just give me your love, please.
Yes, totally. All right. Well, what about resources you want to share?
Everyone always says your podcast, because it's pretty good. It's great. I would also point people to the breastfeeding doctor, Dr. Sharon Silberstein. She's an IBCLC, and she has her own clinic in London. And her Instagram is breastfeedingdoctor.uk. I'd recommend that. Apart from that, I mean, I read some great books about loss and healing, but I think for me the most helpful thing was really just listening to your podcast I found a lot of strength in hearing other women's stories and journeys and struggles and triumphs.
Awesome. Well, thanks for saying that. And I'm glad we got to have your story added to the collection here. And what about the best way for people to connect with you online?
The best way for people to connect with me would be my Instagram. So that's just my name. It's Danae Mercer. It's like Dana with an E, Danae Mercer. We also have a Facebook group. Just search Real with Danae. It's 40,000 women, and they talk a lot about relationship, body image, life, mental health. And from there, you can find everything from our newsletter to my YouTube and all the different platforms. So
awesome.
That's where. And just say hi.
Yeah. Yes, I love following along. I feel like anything, motherhood, and then add it to the beautiful streets of Italy. It's like the best medicine to follow your account. So, all right. Well, thanks again so much for sharing your stories, Danae.
No, well, thank you for having me.
Now I'm going to talk to Ryan, co-founder of Needed, about their recent IRB study results and all of the great products from Needed. Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast to chat with me about Needed again.
Brand, I'm so excited to be back.
Awesome. Well, before we get into all of the new things happening over at Needed, can you just share with my listeners a little bit about who you are and your role at Needed?
Absolutely. I'm the co-CEO and co-founder of Needed.
All right. So I recommend Needed to my listeners, my followers on Instagram all the time. I've been using the products for over a year now. And I just really love that with your perinatal products, you really go beyond the bare minimum. And it's just really important, especially for the people in my audience, because we know that during the stages of life where you're growing babies and feeding babies are especially nutritionally demanding. So I love that you guys are addressing these nutrient deficiencies and talking about now that not all prenatal vitamins are created equally. And on that note, your team just released the results of an IRB study highlighting these differences between standard prenatal vitamins versus needed. Can you just talk a little bit more about this?
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited. This has been a baby of mine for a while.
Yeah.
But basically, there is overwhelming evidence that proper nutrient levels can improve fertility, birth outcomes, and the trajectory of life for both mother and baby thereafter. Yet, as we all know, despite our little kind of communities, nutrition has not been front and center in the perinatal standard of care. And most prenatals on the market provide bare minimum nutrition support. We're designing and conducting studies to add to the clinical literature to unequivocally prove that women deserve more support, resources, and radically better nutritional care. We really just fundamentally think the evidence just cannot be ignored anymore, as the lack of nutritional support is really failing women and children. So our goal for this study specifically was to take a more comprehensive look at nutritional status in pregnancy. The study compared nutritional characteristics between women taking the needed prenatal multi and a standard prenatal vitamin.
Okay.
We collected survey data and analyzed nutrient biomarkers, so nutrient levels actually in the blood themselves, in a diverse group of 235 adult pregnant women across 7 U.S. states. And what's really exciting and what you're hinting towards is that the results actually revealed quite striking insights into how maternal nutrition status differs by the type of prenatal vitamin a woman is taking during pregnancy. Specifically, we found that women taking the needed prenatal multi had higher blood levels of key nutrients for pregnancy, including vitamin D, B6, selenium, and zinc, among a number of others. When we compared prenatal subgroups, we found that only the group of women taking the needed multi had sufficient blood levels of vitamin D and vitamin B6 compared to the group taking the standard prenatal. And nutrients like vitamin D and B6 play key roles in pregnancy in supporting both maternal and baby health outcomes. So it's really exciting. And it's also important to reiterate that our study was diverse and the prenatal groups were comparable on several key factors outside of their prenatal vitamins. This is really important for the rigor of the study. So for example, 1/3 of the women in each group identified as a race ethnicity other than white, and women in both groups were in similar stages of their pregnancy.
Okay, and what does the IRB part mean?
The IRB is the Institutional Review Board, and they're basically a committee that reviews clinical research involving human subjects to ensure that certain ethical standards are met.
Okay, it's super important when studying pregnant women.
Super important when studying pregnant women, and in terms of showing proper kind of rigor and study design went into the methodology of how we conducted the research as well.
Right. So one thing that I thought was interesting is that a lot of this past studies weren't even done on pregnant women or even women. Oftentimes it was like based on white men as far as vitamin levels and things like that. So as you mentioned, these are really striking results. And what does this really mean for women in the trying to conceive or pregnancy or postpartum season of life? Like, what should we be taking away from this data?
You're right that sort of there is a lot of missing gaps in the research, though we also have found that there is a lot of really good research emphasizing the need for better nutrition at this stage of life. But overall, we see this study as adding to the growing body of evidence showing that, one, meeting nutritional needs through diet alone is very challenging in modern context. So supplementation is needed. Two, that most pregnant women in the U.S. fail to meet dietary recommendations for certain key nutrients that are very important for pregnancy, like vitamin D. And third, I think increased evidence that standard prenatals are really falling short in closing the gap between nutritional needs and dietary intake. And overall, we hope this study leads to more clinicians and moms advocating for the nutrition that is needed for a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah, and I've been sharing about this with my followers on Instagram from some of the data you guys are talking about. And one thing I thought was really interesting was the statistic about how few care providers are discussing nutrition with pregnant and postpartum women at all.
Yeah, that is absolutely striking. We found that nearly 80% of women reported receiving little to no nutritional advice from their OBGYN during their pregnancy care.
Yeah, and this is something that comes up on the podcast a lot because I feel like people really notice a difference when they have midwifery care versus OBGYNs because nutrition is something that's talked about in these much longer prenatal appointments and things like that. So yeah, it's a big part of feeling good throughout pregnancy. And I know that one thing that Needed really focuses on as well is that it's not just during pregnancy, but also postpartum. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
We equate it in a lot of ways to nutritional depletion, and that a lot of the importance for this life stage is in avoiding depletion. So meaning when your body lacks the essential vitamins, minerals, or other nutrients that are really needed for optimal function. And depletion is not something that occurs only through pregnancy, but women are more vulnerable in critical life stages such as pregnancy and breastfeeding. So that postpartum stage that you mentioned right there. And a lot of the problem is that women go into pregnancy already depleted and then increase their depletion in growing baby, so end up in a pretty tough spot postpartum. Mm-hmm. There are many contributors to this depletion, from nutrient deficient soil and stress. And then the signs of depletion like brittle nails, fatigue, headaches, mood changes, thinning hair, constipation, dry skin, all sound pretty familiar to us, right? Mm-hmm. And really research suggests that up to 95% of women experience nutritional depletion, even when they are on a prenatal vitamin.
Oh my gosh.
Depletion is, I think, a much bigger problem than we actually, have historically given it credit. And a lot of us, women just assume we have to feel these things, these signs of depletion, just as part of our, that's just the status quo. That's how it's supposed to be. And I think a lot of our sort of emphasis is showing that no, radically better is possible. There are ways to better support ourselves through nutrition to minimize those signs of depletion.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone recording their birth story, and they were saying how, they were super focused on their nutrition during pregnancy, and then it kind of fell to the wayside postpartum. And it's like especially if you're breastfeeding, it's taking a lot of energy and nutrients, and then you're also sleep deprived because you have a new baby. So the depletion, I think, like you mentioned, is just something we really need to focus on beyond pregnancy.
Yeah, and most care providers aren't really reminding folks. They think of it as like a prenatal, not a perinatal.
Right.
There are some postnatals that exist, but I think the use of them in that breastfeeding life stage that is actually more nutritionally intensive than pregnancy is a non-supported part of this life stage. And, where we see so many women really talking about that postpartum period being the most difficult. And I think being able to advocate and raise awareness to better support and how do we care for mom, not just care for baby during that stage is very important.
Yes, I'm just like nodding along to everything over here. So are there any other supplements that women should consider outside of a prenatal to help fight depletion?
Absolutely. So most prenatals and aren't included are vitamin and mineral blends. And there are many other nutrients that are supportive of combating nutrition. Unfortunately, we just don't think that there's a single product that can fully get you over the hill on depletion lack. So it needed what we are really focused on rather than just a single product, though we do hero our prenatal multi a lot, but really an emphasis on a system of products is most supportive. And for example, we do offer an omega-3 DHA EPA add-on. So DHA omega is often something that you probably do hear as part of taking that alongside your prenatal. And DHA and EPA are very supportive of a healthy pregnancy. Sometimes they are combined with a prenatal multi, but we often see that can lead to kind of lack of nutrient integrity or too low of doses. So we do think it is important to offer it as a separate product for that reason, but do advocate for that being added on to your system of products. And then there's a whole host of other products depending on needs. I personally really love our sleep support. As lack of sleep is a big contributor to depletion. And I also really love our breastfeeding safe cognitive support product. It's a product that really helps me sort of feel like me and try to do it all by being a working mom while still, breastfeeding and chasing after my kids. Being able to focus when I need to focus is a critical part of that.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of that one as well. So you guys offer several bundles and things like that with these add-ons. Where's the best place for people to start if they're trying to decide what's right for them?
Our website does help to guide you by sort of life stage or need, which is thisisneeded.com, or we're at Needed on Instagram. And we actually have a team of trained nutritionists and doulas as part of our customer support team. So they're eager and ready to help if you do want to sort of DM us or email us if you kind of get stuck on the website your own. So that's a great place to start. And then I'd also really recommend folks to go to thisisneeded.com/thrive to learn more about the prenatal study and the rigor that went into it and a lot more results beyond what we're able to share today.
Yes, it's so fascinating. And I'm the same way. Like I can't squeeze it all in to share on Instagram either. And so I'm like, please go check it out because it really is amazing what you guys were able to find out from this study. And I love that people are available in the DMs to help guide because I feel like it can be really overwhelming when choosing your prenatal. And starting with the main prenatal is obviously a great choice, but I know lots of people want to take advantage of these bundles too. So that's great to know that it's available to DM or email.
Yeah, I think we're here to help, and it's really a passion of a lot of members of the team to do so. So we're excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for chatting with me about all of this. It's always great to hear what you guys are up to, and I'm always happy to share with my listeners about Needed.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much again to Danae for sharing her stories with us. You can find her show notes by going to thebirthhour.com and just searching for her name in the search bar. And I will link to her resources and contact information there, as well as the information to use the coupon code at thisisneeded.com. You can also find these things in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.